Hi, Phil. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, very well indeed.
Excellent. Good. Director of iPlus Sales.
Yes, yeah, iPlus sales based in the UK and in France.
And in France. Lovely. So, and what is it that just iPlus do, may I ask?
iPlus predominantly we're outsourced lead generation, B2B and B2C. We help clients do the I suppose the easy bit for us and the hard bit for them. It's getting new sales through the door, doing follow-ups, lead generation, and also some of the elements of social media as well, and also looking at some of the different B2B strategies in particular of getting new business in.
Yeah, lead generation is so vital in the business, especially in today's market, really, where there's so much competition for leads. And I wanted to chat to you in particular about LinkedIn today and LinkedIn strategies. I mean, how do you find LinkedIn generally for lead generation?
For me, and probably just a little bit of context, really, I think from my perspective and my background a lot has been in direct sales, but many years of that in telephone sales, B2B telephone sales. And I think that's probably where LinkedIn now has started to change, and my views on LinkedIn have changed. So if I go back maybe 5 or 6 years ago, selling on the phone was okay. It was the same old way of trying to get past gatekeepers, get to the decision makers and have a process. But what we started to see about 3 years ago was that getting through to the decision makers was becoming harder and harder on the phones. And I think when I talk to other companies similar to ours, that they've had the same kind of things. So we wanted to look at, well, where's the new place? And in B2C, it was quite easy to see where some of the sales channels were with social media. So you've got Facebook and Twitter, etc. So you've got those, and there's lots of competition in that. But we really identified LinkedIn really as and I don't really call it a social media channel, but it's the only channel that you can socialize and network in a business setting. And so we started to look at that and go, okay, well, I think LinkedIn potentially could become the new cold calling tool. And that's really where we've adopted that strategy, and we started to look at that.
Okay, and I mean, I guess LinkedIn, one thing there is that you get the cold calling, but what's the strategy? I mean, are there any strategies there so that it's not the kind of connect, sell, that sort of thing that kind of irritates so many people, I guess?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kevin, on that. I think that's the thing that makes me smile a lot. I think there are two distinct things on LinkedIn that I see at the moment. There are a number of people who are saying build your personal brand on LinkedIn, and there are a number of these, I suppose, self-styled gurus who say we've got to do this and got to do that, and I get that, and I think personal brand is one thing, but if I look at it from a very honest sales point of view, it's there. The person you're trying to get hold of is there. You can use some of the LinkedIn accounts to do in-mails, etc. So you can pay a little bit more and gives you a bit more access. But ultimately, the person you want to get hold of is there. Now, the strategy that I look at is absolutely, you are right to mention the people who just connect and sell. I think any sales process, there has to be a process. And I talk about this lots of different times. I talk about that sales, but using LinkedIn, it's a bit like a dating game. It's you need to be able to create a relationship before you can sell. And within that, the relationship on LinkedIn is obviously connection is first. And I think connection is probably where most people make the mistakes. They'll either just randomly connect and just send a connection request with no note, or they'll send a request with a note which is actually very nondescript. It's obvious it's going to be a sales next stage. It's just obvious, and I think that's where most people get it wrong in those initial stages. So when I look at it, I look at it in terms of a sales process, but also your sales time. So how long does it take you in your sales process? There's no way on LinkedIn that you're going to connect with someone and they're going to buy from you that day. It just doesn't look at that. So you need to look at the sales process. And if your sales process is 2 or 3 months, which some big ticket items can be, then of course on LinkedIn, you've probably got to spend 2 or 3 months before you even get to that stage. And I think that's where people go wrong. They think, right, let's use LinkedIn like we use Facebook. Let's just connect with someone, say hi, have a rubbish photo, and then they just go, oh, by the way, we do this. Do you want to buy from us? And people just turn off from that. And you're seeing that more and more every single day. That's changing.
Right, yeah, and you use the analogy of it's like the dating game. And I guess if we met someone for the first time, we probably wouldn't say straight away, should we get married? You know, you got to get to know them as well. And I guess LinkedIn, it's building up that knowing, liking, and trusting element. And you mentioned there that to personalize the connection request to make it something that connects, I guess.
Yeah.
Sounds obvious that a connection request would be connecting, but we all see the standard ones that come through. So personalizing that would be good. And then do you run, once you've got them, do you run campaigns through LinkedIn? I mean, what would a decent campaign through a LinkedIn strategy, what would that look like generally?
It is a strategy and it's a definite process. And I think the days of scattergun approaches just aren't there on LinkedIn. You've got to be really clear. Now something that you'd obviously align to with your clients is you need to be really clear on who you're targeting. You know, you've got to have that process. And I know the great work that you do is about, you know, identifying lots of different things within a business. So your LinkedIn strategy is very much the same, is, you know, identify who that decision maker is, or identify who's involved in a decision-making process, identify the right industry. And then from that, you can use some of the LinkedIn tools, but you can also use the free version of LinkedIn quite successfully as well. Now, the key is getting your search criteria correct. So just make sure you can find the right person. And then the advice I give to people is probably pick 100 people. So let's say you're targeting engineering directors. Let's take that as a good example. So if you're trying to target engineering directors and you've got a certain product or service you're trying to sell to them, you know, pick somewhere between probably 20 and 100 targets. And within those, spend the next 2 or 3 weeks of just going, right, 2 or 3 a day, I'm going to try and connect with, and I'm going to send a personalized message. I'm going to look to their profile. And then from that, if you have some, what I would say is some real hot connections, so somebody connects with you and, you know, they either respond, you know, and say thanks for connecting, and that's fine, is have a good reply on top of that, but then actually is then start to court them. And the way that you can court somebody on LinkedIn is you can like their posts, you can comment if it's applicable, you can also share the posts as well, but I always say share them with intelligence. Don't just share something randomly, you know, and particularly if you're going to comment, you know, just don't comment with some kind of random comment. Have some intelligence around it. And that's how you can start to build. And you have to think about your end game. And that's why the whole process, you know, really just be realistic how long it's going to take you to connect with the people, to message with them, and start to interact over a period of time.
So really a targeted list, 2 to 3 connections a day. And then your hot prospects almost caught through commenting, but intelligently. And I guess one of the things is be patient. Don't rush it.
Absolutely, patience is the key thing, and patience is the key thing in sales. You know, it's about being patient. It's about having a process, and it's always just about going through that stage, because you and yes, we've spoken about the dating game, but you only get you only get one chance to make that first impression. So if you try to target somebody too quickly, they'll just turn off from you. And you can see that happen day in, day out. We all get those requests, and I suppose I'm fairly skilled because we do it. So I can see good ones and bad ones. And it's about just taking your time. But those of us that are either service, are selling machinery, are selling components, anything like that that's a much bigger ticket item, you're going to have to take the time on that process. So the time eventually will reward itself with a decent sale.
Right. Yeah. And I see some similarities here between, you know, networking in person or Zoom, you know, face to face on Zoom. If you're in a networking event, you probably wouldn't meet someone for the first time and kind of start shouting, buy from me, push, push, push. You know, it's that pushy salesperson that always pushes you away. But then we seem to think it's all right just to jump into LinkedIn and go push, 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 buy from me, buy from me, buy from me. So, yeah, I think great advice there. A little thing here, company page versus personal page. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it depends where you are in a business. You should have a company page, and the company page should always be there. And I always say to people, be consistent with either your company page or your personal page, and be consistent with your posting. Now, that doesn't mean you have to post 3 or 4 times a day. It just means be consistent. So if you're going to post twice a week, post on Tuesday and Thursday, just make sure you post on a Tuesday and Thursday. You know, just be consistent with that. with a company page, you will find the bigger the company or even the smaller the company, people will look into your company page. So if you're looking to recruit somebody, they might look into your page. If somebody's looking to buy from you, they'll look into your company page. If you're a business owner or a director or a senior decision maker of a business, then your LinkedIn profile, personal profile, needs to reflect that, and it needs to look like that. But I also say as well that anybody on LinkedIn in any business, they should also have, their profile should look professional, because it's a professional network, and it needs to be done in that way. And it does worry me when I just see people who put up, social pictures as their profile picture. I'm going, come on, just spend a little bit of time. You don't need to go and get a professional photo, but just, something that reflects what you do. And one tip that I say to people, and it's one thing that I've seen, and it's it's very suitable for male and female, is your profile picture as a black and white looks so much more professional. And it's very easy with tools on any computer you've got. You can turn a color photo into a grayscale photo quite easily. It just adds a level of professionalism to the profile.
Okay, well, I guess there's going to be some grayscale coming into my LinkedIn profile very shortly. So thank you for that tip. I hadn't thought about it, but thinking around that, when you see those images, they do look more professional. And the thing I see about LinkedIn, which sometimes people, I believe, maybe miss the point a little bit, is yes, it's a lead generator, but I also think it adds so much to your conversion, and that people come on there and it aids conversion. So how do you think about that, whether it helps conversion within sales or not?
I think it aids conversion, but most of all, it aids engagement. And
yep.
I think with the engagement, it's about when you're trying to target somebody, even if they haven't connected with you, but they've looked at your profile, they might go back again and look at it. They might even go incognito and look at it as well. But it's about looking at what you are doing. And I think that's where the engagement is. So if you are targeting precision engineers over a period of 3 or 4 weeks, then you've probably got to have some posts that reflect that, because right. They're going to be looking in, and therefore the engagement goes from that. I think from a conversion point of view, if you are going through the sales process and people are still seeing you're active on LinkedIn, that people are connecting, sharing, then yes, of course, it helps with the conversion. But for me, the biggest thing I use LinkedIn for in those initial stages is the engagement.
Yeah, and that's a great tip there, actually, that if you're targeting a certain 100 people and you're sending out your 2 to 3, or you're putting out your 2 to 3 connections a day, make sure your content on your LinkedIn is relevant as well to them.
Oh, right. Absolutely. And content should always be relevant. And I think that the one area that people go, you can have abstract content as long as it's still relevant. And I'm a big believer in that. And I'm also a believer in the right kind of images and the right kind of video as well. And I think some people now are getting too carried away with video. You can do overkill on video, but the right kind of video done in the right way at the right time can work really well.
Okay, great. And I mean, 3 top tips you'd say people could implement themselves. What would you say?
Go back to the profile photo. Make sure you've got a decent profile photo. The second one I think is the most important, is your headline. So on LinkedIn, you can put who you are. Now, I see that all the time. You can go up to about 150 words on it. But if you look at my profile, it doesn't necessarily say who I am, but it says what we do. So it will say that we do sales training, lead generation. You can make a really racy headline, which if somebody looks at you, they can just know straight away what you do. And I think too many people just put, they put sales manager at blah, blah, blah. And people are like, so what? So it's about just thinking about what your business does, and just put 3 or 4 headlines that are just there, So if you look at mine, it will say lead generation. It will say sales training, it will say B2B, it will say B2C. So at least if somebody looks at that, they can see what I do, and they can decide then if they want to do it. Because more people will decide then if they see what you do than going, I have no idea what you do. They'll just pass over you. So that would be definitely my second tip on that. My third tip would be regularly post on LinkedIn, but do it consistently with the time that you've got available. So if you can't post every day, don't. But if you can genuinely post 2 or 3 times a week, just make sure you say, right, 12 o'clock or between 12 and 2 on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I can post. And if you do that, you look active.
Excellent. Very good. So Yeah, one of the things I've noticed is a lot of people are joining groups. I mean, is that beneficial or not?
That's a really good question, because I think, you know, groups are there as interest groups, and from a sales perspective, they can be useful, but they can be useful only if you use them correctly. So if you're a salesperson going into groups, you need to be even more aware that you're not seen as a salesperson going into a group, and I think that's what happens a lot of the time. However, if you're a business owner and you are, you know, you're responsible for sales, or you're part of the sales process of your business, there's nothing wrong with joining the right kind of group. So if there's a group on aviation manufacturing, if there is a group on food and beverages, you know, go into those groups that probably got good numbers. And from that, you can start to connect with people and use it from that way. But I definitely use it as a networking tool much more than a sales tool. And it's probably a longer process as well. But why we talk about groups, the one thing that somebody can do, and we have one or two of our clients do it, you can create your own interest groups on LinkedIn, and you can have them as closed groups. So even for me, some of my clients, they are actually in their own sales group that we have on LinkedIn. So you can use it in that way as well. So if you are strategic and you're growing something and you want to invite people into a group, that's a really good way of using groups in a sales perspective. You can invite people in and say, hey, we've got this great group. It's all about precision engineering. It's all about food and beverages, but it's specific to our client base. You could use that as well.
Okay, like I mean, we might call it a community group at times, like your own group. Yeah, I like that. And then just it's kind of invite only, bring them in, and people see the benefits of it. And it's almost like your group might do the selling for you without actually selling, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Because and I always work, if you're a really good business and you've got good customers, you know, that they're not going to move away from you. So there's no harm in customers talking to other customers, because they should be saying good things about you. So new people coming into that group would ask questions. They go, oh, well, I actually speak to Kevin about this. You know, he's got a great insight into the strategy and really helped our move our business forward. So yes, they are really good in that perspective.
Okay, good. And I've seen LinkedIn stories of what's your thoughts on LinkedIn stories?
LinkedIn stories are good because LinkedIn likes to promote them.
Okay.
But it's also about, it's risen out of people saying about personal branding and going through that. I'm not the biggest fan of them. I think they work, but for me, there's a lot of time and effort. Some people would argue and say, no, that's wrong. But from my perspective, I think you can do better things with LinkedIn rather than using stories.
Okay, now I've seen some people talk about their SSI scores. I mean, any thoughts around SSI scores? Are they really valuable for you to track and monitor? What can you do to increase them?
Yeah, I mean, they are valuable. But again, if I look at it from a purely, you know, brutal sales perspective, if you get your sales process right and you are targeting people and you are out there, then you're actually doing the outbound element of sales. And that's probably where I come from that. Your SSI is fine from a perspective of inbound traffic. You know, you can get yourself seen more, you get your brand awareness more. I suppose I'm looking from an outbound, reaching out to a decision maker perspective. I don't think it really matters.
Right. Okay. And it's interesting. You said two words there that I thought jumped out: sales process. And I doubt many people actually have a clear, documented, written out way that they are going to sell through LinkedIn. The process of warming up all the way through to generating that lead. I guess that's vital, isn't it?
It's hugely vital, and you're absolutely right. Not many people have got that strategy at all. And I tell you where people fall down, and it doesn't matter if it's LinkedIn or not, and you'll really be able to relate to this. A lot of people don't stick to the process and they give up because they don't think it's working, because they don't give it the time to do it. And that's where with LinkedIn, you need to give it the time. You need to realize that you're not going to get sales straight away, but you need to build that network, and eventually the work you put in will turn into sales. And then the final piece that people always fail on is, once you've engaged with someone, once they're in the sales process, you still need to continue to engage with them. And particularly when you've actually done a proposition. So when you've done your proposal to somebody, you can use LinkedIn to follow up as well. And you don't have to follow up and say, hey, you're going to buy from me. It's about keeping that engagement going through that decision-making process.
Look, that's been so enlightening for me, and I know a lot of people are going to benefit from this chat with you. So thank you very much, Phil, for taking the time to talk us through LinkedIn. You clearly know your stuff. You're clearly an expert. And would it be okay? I mean, could you offer a free consultation for our viewers to have a small strategy session or anything on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. You know, I love working with you and with Action Coach as well. So yeah, more than happy to be of any assistance to any of your viewers there as well. So happy to do a consultation on how they're using LinkedIn. Also run a sales bootcamp every month as well. So more than happy to offer up some free places on that as well.
Okay, sales boot camp and a free consultation. So how, if they just comment below, we can then obviously put you in touch, or you'll see it. So
yeah, just comment below, connect with me on LinkedIn, say you saw me on your channel, and yeah, more than happy to help with that.
So thank you so much for taking the time.
It's my absolute pleasure, Kevin. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.